So The Killer's Game is what I would say the latest in a long line of John Wick ripoff movies. And I say that lovingly. I don't say that disparagingly. I say that
Yeah.
lovingly. We have a lot of John Wick ripoff movies in the past decade, appropriately so. It's a hugely influential movie, but things
Mhm.
like Nobody and Atomic Blonde and Violent Night and Silent Night, we're getting them one after one. And I would say that The Killer's Game is appropriately fitting into that canon because this is a movie about a hitman at the end of the day. Dave Bautista's character is playing a hitman who is on the verge of retirement because he's essentially found out something that's pretty important about his life and his well-being and just ultimately his longevity in life without getting too deep into it. But he's also met a new person. He's met who he would say now is the love of his life, and that's the character that Sofia Boutella plays in this movie, Maisie. She's a ballerina dancer. He saves her life, and ultimately he hits it off with her and has this really, really tremendous relationship build, this love that builds between them. But a key pivotal event causes him to change course, and ultimately he has to get out of the game. He has to not be a hitman anymore, but things do not go as planned. All sorts of shenanigans come at play, and he ultimately has to fight for his life and fight for the love of his life as well. And so that's really just kind of the basic premise of this movie that I got a chance to check out. And ultimately, I have to say it's not that great, which is
Mhm.
unfortunate. It's one of those situations in which I found the first 30 or so minutes of this movie to be really, really compelling when it's focusing on the story and the characters and building up this assassin, this hitman that Dave Bautista plays. I really enjoyed that stuff. I thought that they actually did a really fantastic job at getting you to care about this character, getting you to care
Yeah.
about his girlfriend, played by Sofia Boutella, and really getting you invested into the story and ultimately just the consequences and the stakes that are at play because the stakes are pretty huge for these characters. And so I was really locked in for the first 30 minutes. And I'm like, wow, Dave Bautista, he's done a tremendous job at picking and he had a hand in producing this as well. So this is a movie that he's very much responsible for. Unfortunately, I find that after that initial setup, and once you just kind of get to the real meat of the movie and really what takes place for most of the movie, and that is a lot of the action and the hijinks that take place, it just becomes another standard action film. And
Mhm.
it's just not that great because in an era where we do get so many John Wick ripoffs or things that are inspired by that movie, you have to create an experience in which you can tell it's either uniquely different from that, it's inspired by that, but it's uniquely different, or the choreography has to be either just as good or exceed what we're seeing in that particular film series. And this movie just doesn't do that. The
Mhm.
actual action and the hand-to-hand combat and the gunplay and the things that go down aren't that impressive. It's kind of repetitive for the most part. There's a portion of the movie towards the end where everybody's just throwing grenades at each other, and it's like this is the most uninteresting thing, like just a bunch of grenades. Like it's not challenging enough. It's not great fight choreography, it's not great action choreography. Anybody can do that, so I wasn't that impressed. And you get your typical colorful cast of assassin characters, the people that are a part of this world that they try to build out of these assassins, people that come from all across Europe. You have your British strippers, you have your Irish beer drinkers. That's where Drew McIntyre comes into the movie. Like you have these really colorful characters, but you've seen them before. You've seen them even done better in other movies. I think the best character who's an assassin outside of Dave Bautista in this movie was probably Terry Crews, just because he had the most to
Mm.
do. He's one of the hitmen that are after Joe. He's one of the most talented. And obviously Terry Crews is a big guy, so he can stand toe to toe with Batista and be believable as a threat. But outside of that, none of the characters are really memorable, and they get dispelled and disposed of pretty quickly. And so I think by the end of it, I just walked away thinking like, well, this was okay. It's just very, very average.
Mhm.
Certainly not the worst that you can do in terms of being inspired by a movie like John Wick that is so influential. And they tried to do things to build out a world and to try to take it to, I guess, a new level in which they could explore and maybe future stories. I don't know if it'll be that successful to justify that. And also just from a quality standpoint, I don't think that they do enough to make it interesting, to make me feel really engrossed and enveloped in this world. I think when you look at a movie like John Wick, instantly from the first film, you're like, there's a lot here. There's so much more that
Yeah.
they can do in the next few movies. You never really feel that here. You don't feel it within the action. You don't feel it within the characters, and ultimately the story kind of falters because of it. So I was let down by it. Again, not terrible. Hoped a little bit more for Dave Bautista, but it's one of those more disappointing efforts in terms of an action film from this year.
Yeah. Also, even like I was thinking about Sophia Boutella has not had a great record here when it comes to movies that have been coming out between like Rebel Moon, and I know she was in Argyle. And I don't know. She's kind of been going through it herself. But yeah, it's too bad to hear about Killer's Game. What's also funny about Killer's Game is just how much they were promoting it during just wrestling events. You're like, oh shoot, and you know they're promoting it because Drew McIntyre's in it, and I bet you he was in it for what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't
Just
know.
about. Yep. Just about.
Yeah. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I just thought that was funny as well. But to your point though, even there are enough, I think, John Wick, like you said, predecessors that do things well enough for you to be like, oh yeah, this is pretty decent. Like Nobody, Monkey Man comes to mind recently. You know what I mean? Like, oh shoot, this is actually really good. And so when I feel like when a movie like this comes out, it's like, no, you got to bring it in order, for us to be like, to make it feel worth it, I think. And it just sounds like Killer's Game wasn't necessarily that worth it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
I think Sophia Boutella is getting. I think she's just getting shoehorned into very particular types of movies because she's beautiful. She's a gorgeous woman, but I don't think people are looking at her for, hey, we have this incredible script that we want you to act out. I think she's getting chosen because of her beauty. And oftentimes that can result in films that are half baked and undercooked. And I think that that's what's happening here. I don't think it's her at all because I really like her. I think she's pretty good. But I think it's just the choices that she's being given, the opportunities that she's being given. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but you do see where Bautista's heart was at in making this movie, and he is the best part. I mean, he just once again shows why he's such a good actor, why he's come so far in terms of his talent and ability, and just hearing him talk about this film and other films and press junkets and just things he wants to achieve. I mean, he still views himself as a new actor, as an inexperienced actor, as somebody who has so much more to do and has so many more levels that he wants to go to. Like, he doesn't think he's arrived, even though he's been a part of the biggest cinematic franchise ever in the MCU. Like, you could just look at him and say, like, yeah, bro, you did that, and you've done Dune, and you've done James Bond, and like, you've kind of done it all already. But he still has so many levels that he wants to achieve, and I really respect him for that. He knows that there's more to do on what he can achieve in Hollywood, and I love to see more from him. I'm always going to support Dave Bautista. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new action film, The Killer's Game. If you've checked it out, hit us up and let us know what you think.